Okay, happy Tuesday. Let's talk a little bit today about food chains and food webs. Okay, there's a big difference between the two, but there's also a lot of similarities. So let's go ahead and start with food chains. So, one of the most important things about this is the word chain. So, if you've ever seen a chain, or maybe maybe when you were younger, or maybe even now, at Christmas time, you take the paper, the different colors, and you make a circle, and then you glue or tape them, and you connect them together, and then you put them around your Christmas tree. Okay, so they're linked one by one, and then it becomes a chain. Okay, but we only put one paper connected to the other, right? And then you connect another piece, another piece, another piece. So you don't put like 5 papers on one other paper, one link, right? I don't do that. So that's the same thing here. So when you're talking about a food chain, it's one thing that's attached to another. So I'm going to show you. So for example, well, here's a couple of examples. So you have a tree, okay? The deer eats the tree, and then the lion eats the deer. So they're linked one by one. They show you who eats what, because it's not just a regular chain, it's a food chain. So it talks about the food. Okay? Here's another one. You have algae. What eats the algae? Small fish. What might eat the small fish? A bird. Flower. What might eat the flower? Flies. What might eat the flies? A frog. Now, there's a couple of important things that you might notice about these food chains. What do we always start with? Producers, right? A tree, algae, and flowers are all plants. They make their own food, so they're producers. Then, what type of consumers do we have next? Right, they're all animals that eat only producers, plants. What kind of consumers only eat plants? Herbivores, right? Remember from yesterday's lesson? So herbivores only eat plants. Okay, now we have other consumers, but they're eating these consumers. So we have animals eating other animals. So these guys must all be what type of consumer? Right, carnivore, because they're eating meat. All of these guys have meat. Okay? And then you can keep going further and further and further on, as long as you're doing one by one. So if you can think of something that would eat a lion or a bird or a frog, then you could keep the food chain going. Okay, and you can think of it as a visual like this. So they're connected, and all I'm doing is drawing circles around them so that you can really see how they are a chain. Okay, so it's one linked to the other, a food chain. Okay, all right, let's talk about a food web, or an energy pyramid. And I always lose my rag here. What did I do with it? Good gracious. Yep. Okay. Too many colors. I can't use my hand for that one. Okay. So let's do food web. And again, it's gonna be just like it sounds. A web. So think about webs that you know of. Right, a spider web. Okay, what does a spider web look like? Well, it goes all over the place, right? It's big, and it has lines everywhere. It's not just one line connected to another line connected to another line. So it's not a chain, it's a web. So it's same thing, same concept. So all the different producers and consumers and decomposers living in an area, like an ecosystem or biome, like feeding off of each other or needing each other for food. Okay, but we don't always just have one animal eating another animal. We might have 5 different kinds of animals that like that one type of plant or animal to eat. So that becomes a bigger web. So let's do one together. Okay, so we've got Any kind of producer starts at the bottom. So we have trees, flowers, and corn. Because corn is a plant, right? It's a producer. Okay, so then we're going to go up and start connecting. Okay, so we always start with our producers first, right? So they're going to be at the bottom, and then we're going to start making some connections. So let's do grasshoppers. And I have just looked up some that you can look up some too, just to show you. So what do grasshoppers eat? They might eat flowers and corn. So it's not linked one by one anymore. You have one animal that might eat multiple things. Okay. Then eating on some of the trees, we might have those flies that we were talking about. Okay, and then what eats flies? Birds. Okay, now let's see if we can connect these two sections that we have going on. So grasshoppers, what might eat grasshoppers? Well, we might have some frogs and maybe a rat might eat a grasshopper. Not a cat, a rat. Okay, what might eat a rat? A fox. What might eat a frog? A snake. Okay, how can we connect the two? Well, I bet a fox would also try and eat a bird. See how it's starting? We have so many lines. It's starting to become more like this big web, right? It's not just one by one by one. So we kind of started over here as a food chain, linking one by one. But now we have this one connecting to here, and we have multiple animals eating different types of producers over here. Okay, so a food web is going to be a bigger scale, or it's going to be a lot of food chains all put together into one. Well, how do we know what food chains fit together to make a food web? We can't just take any food chains and put them together. They all have to be part of the same biome or ecosystem. So remember, we have certain types of plants and animals that live in certain places. So I'm not going to find the Arctic fox here in the deciduous forest, because that's not its home. So it's not going to be part, the Arctic fox is not going to be part of a food chain or a food web in the deciduous forest. Okay, so you have certain types of animals that make food chains and make food webs in different places, and we're going to talk about that more through the week and next week, and we're going to break down all the different places and what types of plants and animals I might find there. Okay, but at least you have a good base of what's living, what's not living, what might I find in ecosystems and biomes, and now we've kind of talked about food chains and food webs. Okay, so you have some good background knowledge before we jump into the actual large biomes themselves. Okay, make sure that you're checking out Study Jams, because it has a really good video on there about food chains and food webs. See if you can create your own food chains and food webs. So pick your favorite biome, whatever that one might be, and you can go back. If you don't remember all the biomes to choose from, you can go back to lesson 1 video, okay, and pick one. And you can do research, okay, so you can get online and look. Don't just copy one, though. Really dig and see if you can find different plants and animals, and then see if you can figure out what eats what. Okay, don't just type in tundra food chain, because it'll bring it right up. Okay, you need to try and do a little bit of digging on your own and practice, and see if you can make a couple of them. And then once you have some chains, see if you can make a web out of them by putting them together and seeing how those chains maybe can mix together, and if different animals eat different plants. Okay, and different animals eating other animals. Okay, so see if you can put that together. Feel free to send me pictures. I know it's not part of your packet, but that's just something extra that you can be working on that will help you. Okay, so send me pictures. You can send me them on email or on our Google Classroom. All right? All right, have a good day. Bye.